In your view, what are the biggest issues facing Canadians right now, and which of those do you believe are being most overlooked or mishandled by the government?
Yeah, thank you. So I am the conservative shadow minister for employment. So I've got, I guess, a bit of a bias to thinking the issues I'm working on that I've been assigned to work on are among the most important. And there's growing discussion of it, but I would like to see them even more discussed. So what's happening on the employment front is that we have a very high youth unemployment rate. It is much higher than the national unemployment rate and very high in its own right. We've seen recession levels of youth unemployment this fall, and this is very important for young people that are hoping to gain critical skills in those first jobs that they're going to get. And I think there are some economic problems that are contributing to that. Some ways in which the management of the economy has been mishandled. There's also some immigration policy issues that are contributing to that. We've seen in the last 10 years growing competition for entry level positions as a result of high immigration levels, but also a poorly targeted immigration system. And an immigration system where we haven't had the recognition of credentials. If you've got people who come here from overseas with skills, but then they're prevented from using those skills, then those people are forced to compete for entry level positions. So we proposed some reforms in terms of supporting economic growth, as well as reforms that would address the immigration challenges. One of the other things that I have discovered talking to employers and young people across the country is mismatches in the area of training contributing to youth unemployment. It's so important that our education and training systems are preparing young people for the jobs that exist. And we have a lot of young people who are not able to find work in their fields while employers report shortages in areas where specific skills are required. So addressing those skills mismatches are important. And talking to young people, I always encourage them to look at the job market, think about what is being demanded. Also, think about the areas you're interested in obviously, but look at where that overlap is between the demands of the labor market and the things you're interested in, and then try to start as early as possible, getting training that's going to be job relevant. So I think we need more policy to promote an alignment between training and the job market. One of the things we put forward is to offer relatively more generous grants to students that are studying in demand fields. So to kind of magnify market signals to students to encourage them to pursue studies in areas where there is demand in the labor market for what they're studying. Sadly, the Liberals with their budget are moving in the opposite direction because they've proposed making students who study at private for-profit career colleges no longer eligible for student grants. And this would be a barrier for students who want to acquire skills that are actually in demand for the labor market to be able to get those skills. So to me, it seems unfair that you say to students, okay, any program you go to a university for is covered by student grants, but any program you go to a private for-profit college where likely these are the only or the primary places where you can get certain job relevant skills. Suddenly, that's no longer covered by student grants. So um, we put out a conservative youth jobs plan this fall that has four pillars to it: unleashing the economy, fixing immigration, fixing training, and then the fourth one that I haven't talked about yet is building homes where the jobs are. There's some geographic mismatches in the country, I guess, between where jobs are available and where there's high unemployment, and not everybody wants to or is able to move for a job. But I think we can do more to make it easier for young people who are unemployed to take jobs in regions where maybe they didn't grow up, didn't aren't living, but to be able to seize those opportunities and incentives that make it easier for employers to offer housing to those prospective employees are one step towards that. So that's our conservative youth jobs plan. I think it addresses a key need, and that's been a real priority for me this fall, in alignment with my shadow minister responsibilities to try to put forward solutions to the youth unemployment challenges.
With two conservative MPs crossing the floor, what do you think is driving these decisions? And do you expect more defections that could give Prime Minister Carney a majority?
Well, I think everybody has to kind of live with their own conscience. And I know for a lot of people, the idea of going to voters and telling them you're going to stand for a certain set of things and then standing for a completely different set of things once you get there. I suspect that folks who have done that will have a hard time explaining um, to their friends and neighbors, the people who donated, who door knocked for them, why they've reversed themselves. And we've seen floor crossings over the years, but more commonly they happen in response to uh, specific policy changes or shifts where or dramatic changes in the circumstances around political parties. Um, I think the individuals who did that, who chose to who chose to join the government, will have to account for those choices with before their constituents. Um, but I think the part of the dynamic at play is um, that uh, the the liberals have tried to put forward a different face than they did for the last 10 years. They've tried to position themselves as being different from the way they were under Justin Trudeau. And I think fairly quickly people are going to see, certainly voters are going to see, that it's the same governing philosophy that we're continuing to see a similar approach. And I think with Prime Minister Carney, his philosophy is very big government oriented. It's very oriented towards government intervention in all different levels of the economy and society. And hey, if you believe that, you're entitled to those convictions. But conservatives believe in I like to say, solidarity and subsidiarity. Solidarity is the idea that we care about the well-being of people around us, and subsidiarity is the idea that decisions should be made at the level closest to the people. That we shouldn't have big government interfering in every aspect of the economy or social life, but that we should have greater freedom and localized decision making. That's the conservative philosophy. It is very different than the more statist big government approach that Mark Carney's always advocated. So I see his approach as a continuation of what the Liberals have been doing for the last 10 years, and we'll continue to see similar results, which are high unemployment, declining in investment, uh, a situation in which small business especially are saying that it's harder and harder to create opportunity. Um, and I think Canadians are gonna continue to see that and continue to respond to it. Um, Canadians have wanted change. The Liberals tried to fool Canadians into thinking that they represented a change option, uh, but I do not think that they have. I think people are going to start to see very quickly how this is just a continuation of what we've had over the last 10 years.
What are a few things you think the Conservative Party needs to do better right now to strengthen its appeal and performance?
Well, there's um, there's a saying that I've taken to heart, which is strategy is something you do, not talk about. Um, I I think any political party, members sitting around talking, they would have ideas and suggestions about how they can strengthen their engagement going forward. Um, but I think the point I would make on the positive side is that on many of the major issues, we have won the arguments. So you go back to the conversations that have happened around taxation, around the carbon tax in particular, around jobs, immigration, criminal justice. The public conversation has now shifted to the point where people are recognizing things that we've been arguing for all along. The need for reforms in the immigration system, the need to reverse liberal bail, the need to get rid of the consumer carbon tax, although the liberals are still maintaining a kind of carbon tax that's indirect and still imposes a lot of costs on people. So on many fronts, um, we have been winning the public arguments. And that has led the liberals to start to um, try to incorporate in their language some of the things that we're saying, even though they haven't always implemented the policies. They have not repealed their anti-pipeline bills, C-48 and C-69. They've left in place the industrial carbon tax. Their follow through on immigration changes has not been effective. Um, so I think what you want as an opposition party is to be able to make the case for the things that you believe are important and try to win those arguments and bring about policy change. The easiest way to bring about policy change is being in government, and obviously we would like to earn the confidence of Canadians in order to do that. Um, but I think one of the things we need to reflect on is how over the last year, even though we didn't win the election, we won many of those critical arguments, and that's a credit to the work we've been trying to do, and also particular credit to our leader Pierre Poilievre, who's been decisively, effectively bringing these issues to Canadians and being persuasive in those arguments.
Where do you see Canada's younger generation, people like myself, in the next 20 years? And what kind of future do you think we're realistically heading towards?
Yeah, I mean, the last 10 years shows how much policy uh, can change the opportunity horizon that people have. But the good news is that it can change again. Um, uh, 10 years ago, I think a lot of young people were more optimistic. Housing was much cheaper. Basic essentials like food was much more affordable, and there was not the same kind of misalignment between kind of the skills people were able to get and the jobs that were available. So I think there is a lot of pessimism and frustration among young people right now. But I would say that at a basic level, this country has the potential to deliver so much in the way of opportunity. We have boundless natural resources. We have innovative people with experience and connections around the world. We have so much that we can do as a country, but policies are getting in the way. Anti-development policies, high tax, high regulation policies that are limiting job and opportunity growth. Um, so the opportunities are there if we can succeed in making the kinds of policy reforms that we need. And talking about the opportunities for young people, I mean, I'll zero in again on the area of unemployment and employment. Young people are concerned about building those careers that will allow them to afford a home, afford the things they need, start a family. So some of that is just things being too expensive and addressing the government overspending that's driving inflation. But then also on the employment side, we put forward in the last election a proposal to have zero capital gains on earnings that were immediately reinvested in Canada. So trying to create incentives for reinvestment in Canada. And we need to address red tape and other barriers that make it hard to start and grow a business in Canada. Um, small business can be an incredible engine for job growth, but the barriers keep being layered on top of small businesses and businesses of all sizes. So, what are the opportunities for young people? I'd say just to put a fine point on it here, I think the opportunities can be immense, but we need policy changes so that we can seize those opportunities.
Well, the last few years, Canada's economy is doing quite poorly. What changes do you believe need to be put in place for a better Canadian economy?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a very important question. Massive government overspending has been driving inflation. If you print more money to spend on more things on the government side, that doesn't mean more wealth. It just means more dollars chasing fewer goods. And inflationary spending has had uh, significant negative effects on our economy. And I think we see how taxes that hit our transportation sector and other sectors in particular have driven up the price of critical commodities like food that people need. Um, so what's the solution to that? Get government spending under control. We proposed a dollar for dollar rule where a dollar of new spending has to be accompanied by a dollar of savings identified. We also need to prioritize making Canada a friendly environment in which to invest with stable, predictable rules. We want to repeal, in particular, legislation like C-48 and C-69 that gets in the way of energy development. I think more broadly as well. I talked earlier about kind of the statist Mark Carney philosophy versus the approach that we want to take. And you see that the Liberals now are talking about major projects, but they're still talking about it in a very kind of state intervention oriented way. The framework that they have is they're going to leave in place a whole bunch of burdensome regulations, but the government is going to abridge those regulations in particular cases for particular favored projects if you can get yourself on the preferred list. And so that's a situation where it's the government coming in and establishing um, the preferred list and what the preferred projects are. And if you're not on that preferred list, then you're subject to all kinds of additional barriers. And the way you move forward is by currying favor with the government to get on that list. Well, that's um, we don't see that as the best way to unleash economic opportunity. It may well be better than nothing, but a better way would be to simply reform that regulatory environment so that companies can move forward with major projects regardless of whether or not they are on the preferred list. So these are some of the changes that we're advocating for. And again, I think this country has such immense potential. We just need to address some of the policy barriers that have been erected in the last 10 years that are causing these economic problems.
Well, what originally drew you to the Conservative Party, and what values continue to resonate with you and keep you involved today?
Yeah, so I have been interested in politics for a long time. My um, that interest came from my family, my grandparents in particular. My grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. Her father was Jewish. She was living in Germany during the Second World War and concerned for international human rights, for the prevention of genocide is a key issue for me. Has always been. The promise that was made to my grandmother's generation after the Holocaust was never again. And yet we have seen continuing instances of terrible crimes committed against religious and ethnic minority communities. Even in the relatively short time I've been a member of parliament, we've seen multiple instances of genocides taking place in different parts of the world. So that was a key factor that drew me to politics, and that draws me to Conservative Party involvement because of the emphasis we put on a principled foreign policy of standing up for Canadian uh, uh, values and principles in our engagement with the world. Some political parties, political dispositions, are oriented to more of a go along to get along in the world attitude, whereas I see our party as defending a an engagement in the world that is principled and that in some cases must put our values ahead of short-term economic considerations. Although I do think some of the engagement with autocratic powers and human rights abusers that is supposed to be good for our economy often isn't in the long term because it leaves us more strategically vulnerable. So that's the experience of my grandmother. My grandfather, also a big influence. He was an engineer and he was working and living in Alberta during a time of something called the National Energy Program. And this is a big thing in the consciousness of people of Alberta. It doesn't. I know it's not as much discussed or thought about in other parts of the country, but it's really an important moment where the government of Pierre Elliott Trudeau put in place it's called the National Energy Program, very ill-advised economic policy that basically destroyed a whole bunch of wealth and opportunity for Alberta in a very short space of time, and that led a lot of people to become very political in response to the Trudeau government. So my grandmother's experience on the kind of international human rights side, my grandfather's experience on the domestic economic front. Both of these were things that kind of impacted the stories I was hearing growing up and the things I was learning about, and they informed my appreciation for the fact that politics is important, and also my decision to engage with the Conservative Party, and those issues, principled foreign policy and well um, well reasoned domestic economic policy. These continue to be front and center issues in our political debates and continue to be things that motivate my involvement.
What do you think is the main weakness of the current Liberal government, and what is the biggest change that the party needs to impose to improve Canada?
Yeah, I mean, it's a target rich environment, but I guess I'll be true to my work in the youth employment area again. Just coming back to this, I mean, I think um, uh, the the failure to position Canada as a um, as an optimal destination for investment. Not just if you're on the preferred project list, but for any kind of investment. The failure to do that is leading to significant economic problems, and the continuation of a top down government knows best approach to development. I think is going to continue to have negative consequences for the creation of jobs and opportunity, and for the economy as a whole. What I would like to see the government do is implement the Conservative Youth Jobs Plan that we put forward this fall, and it was important for me in the context of this role, Shadow Minister for Employment, is to be very constructive, to try to put specific ideas on the table and ask the government to implement them. And that's why we put forward that youth jobs plan. And look, sadly, it's not been implemented yet, but it's still on the table, and we're still hoping the government will pick up on some of those good ideas.
Do you continue to have confidence in the leadership of Pierre Poilievre?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I think he has shown in the years he's been leader and before that a real effectiveness at defending and advancing conservative principles and in drawing new people to our party in the process. We grew significantly in the last election. Obviously, the collapse of the NDP created a different set of circumstances for the number you needed in order to form government. But we have significantly grown our party, and I think that will have durable long-term impacts that many of the people um, that have come to see themselves in our party will be long-term conservative supporters because they will have come to see how their principles align with ours. So we've had really positive incremental growth under his leadership, and I think we need to continue to build on that foundation.